Welcome to the Englishstorywell channel, your ultimate destination for captivating stories that enhance your English learning journey. Here, we believe that stories are not just a form of entertainment, but a powerful tool to improve your language skills. Let's go to started.
Learning English, like any other language, is a journey. It takes time, effort, and patience. For many people, two of the most challenging aspects of learning English are listening and speaking. While reading and writing can be practiced alone, listening and speaking require interaction with others. This can make it more difficult to improve, especially if you're shy or don't have many opportunities to practice with native speakers. In this story, I'll share some tips on how to improve your English listening and speaking skills. I'll take you through my personal experiences and show you how I went from being nervous about speaking English to feeling confident in everyday conversations. The beginning of my journey. When I first started learning English, I found listening and speaking to be the hardest parts. I could read and write fairly well, but understanding spoken English was a real challenge for me. Native speakers seemed to speak too fast, and they used words and phrases I had never seen in textbooks. On top of that, my speaking skills were not great either. I felt embarrassed when I made mistakes, and I often hesitated to speak because I didn't want to say the wrong thing. But I knew that improving my listening and speaking skills was essential. After all, what's the point of learning a language if you can't communicate with others? So I decided to focus on these areas and come up with a plan to improve. Here's what I did. 1. Listening to English every day. The first thing I did was make English a part of my daily routine. I realized that the more I listened to English, the better I would become at understanding it. But it wasn't enough to just listen once in a while. I needed to listen every day. I started by listening to simple English podcasts and watching videos that were made for English learners. These were helpful because the speakers talked slowly and clearly, and they used vocabulary that I could understand. At first, I struggled to keep up, but over time, I noticed that I was able to follow along more easily. 2. Watching English TV shows and movies. Once I became more comfortable with simple listening materials, I decided to challenge myself by watching English TV shows and movies. At first, I found this difficult because the actors spoke quickly and they used a lot of slang and idiomatic expressions. But I didn't let that discourage me. I turned on the subtitles so I could read along while I listened. This helped me understand the words and phrases that were being used. One of the best things about watching TV shows and movies in English is that you can hear how people really speak. In textbooks, the language is often formal and polite, but in everyday life, people speak more casually. Watching TV shows allowed me to learn the kind of English that people use in real conversations. I also made a habit of watching the same episode or movie more than once. The first time I watched, I would focus on understanding the general meaning. The second time, I paid attention to specific words and phrases. By the third time, I could usually follow the dialogue without needing subtitles. This repetition helped improve my listening comprehension. 3. Practicing speaking alone. For many learners, speaking is the most intimidating part of learning English. It was certainly the hardest part for me. I was nervous about making mistakes, and I didn't want people to think I couldn't speak English well. But I knew that the only way to get better at speaking was to practice. One of the ways I practiced speaking was by talking to myself. I know it sounds strange, but it really helped. I would stand in front of a mirror and have a conversation with myself in English. I would talk about my day, describe what I was doing, or imagine a situation where I had to ask for directions. This gave me the chance to practice speaking without feeling embarrassed. Talking to yourself is a great way to improve your fluency because you can practice at your own pace. You don't have to worry about making mistakes or feeling judged. It also helps you get used to hearing yourself speak in English, which can boost your confidence when you talk to other people. 4. Recording myself speaking. Another technique I used to improve my speaking was recording myself. I would choose a topic to talk about, such as my favorite movie or a recent trip, and then I would record myself speaking for a few minutes. Afterward, I would listen to the recording and pay attention to my pronunciation, intonation, and any mistakes I made. At first, I didn't like the sound of my voice in English. It sounded strange to me, and I noticed that I made a lot of errors. But I didn't let that stop me. Over time, I became more comfortable with my voice, and I started to notice improvements in my speaking. Recording myself allowed me to identify areas where I needed to improve, and it gave me the motivation to keep practicing. 5. Speaking with native speakers. One of the best ways to improve your speaking skills is to have conversations with native speakers. I was lucky enough to have some friends who spoke English, and they were happy to help me practice. At first, I was nervous about speaking with them because I was afraid of making mistakes. But my friends were patient and supportive, and they encouraged me to keep trying. When you speak with native speakers, you learn how to communicate in real-life situations. You get to practice responding to questions, asking for clarification, and using the right words and phrases for different contexts. It's also a great way to improve your listening skills because you have to understand what the other person is saying in order to respond. If you don't have native English-speaking friends, there are still plenty of ways to practice speaking with others. You can join language exchange programs, where you can practice English with native speakers in exchange for helping them learn your language. There are also online platforms where you can find conversation partners or even hire a tutor to practice speaking with you. 6. Joining a conversation group. In addition to speaking with my friends, I also joined an English conversation group in my city. This group met once a week, and it was open to anyone who wanted to practice speaking English. There were people from all over the world, and we would take turns talking about different topics such as travel, food, or hobbies. Being part of a conversation group was a great way to practice speaking in a relaxed and friendly environment. Everyone was there to improve their English, so we all understood each other's struggles. It was also a chance to learn from others. I got to hear different accents and speaking styles, and I picked up new vocabulary and expressions from my fellow learners. 7. Shadowing native speakers. One technique that really helped improve both my listening and speaking skills was called shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say as quickly as possible, almost like an echo. This helps you improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. I started by choosing a short audio clip from a podcast or a video with subtitles. I would listen to the speaker and repeat what they said, trying to match their speed and tone. At first, it was difficult to keep up, but with practice, I got better at it. Shadowing helped me become more comfortable with the natural flow of English, and it improved my ability to understand fast speech. 8. Learning vocabulary and context. One of the biggest challenges in listening and speaking is understanding and using the right vocabulary. When I first started learning English, I would memorize long lists of vocabulary words. But I soon realized that memorizing words out of context wasn't very helpful. I could remember the words, but I didn't know how to use them in real conversations. So, I changed my approach. Instead of memorizing lists of words, I focused on learning vocabulary in context. I would listen to podcasts, watch videos, or read articles, and whenever I came across a new word, I would write it down along with the sentence it appeared in. This helped me understand how the word was used and in what situations it was appropriate. For example, I learned the word grateful from a podcast where the speaker was talking about being thankful for small things in life. By hearing the word in context, I understood that grateful is often used when you want to express appreciation for something positive in your life. I then practiced using the word in my own sentences until I felt comfortable with it. 9. Being patient and consistent. Improving your listening and speaking skills in English takes time. There were moments when I felt frustrated because I wasn't making progress as quickly as I wanted. But I reminded myself that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. The key is to be patient and consistent. I made a commitment to practice listening and speaking every day, even if it was just for a few minutes. Some days, I would spend an hour listening to podcasts or watching videos. Other days, I would practice speaking by recording myself or talking to friends. The important thing was that I kept going, even when it felt difficult. 10. Celebrating small victories. One of the most important lessons I learned on my journey to improving my listening and speaking skills was to celebrate small victories. Learning a language is hard, and it's easy to focus on your mistakes or the things you don't understand. But it's also important to recognize your progress. I remember the first time I had a conversation in English with a native speaker and felt completely confident. I didn't hesitate, and I understood everything they said. It was a small moment, but it was a big victory for me. Moments like that kept me motivated to keep learning and improving. Conclusion. Improving your listening and speaking skills in English is a journey, and it's one that requires dedication and practice. But with the right strategies, you can make steady progress. Whether you're listening to podcasts, practicing speaking with yourself, or having conversations with native speakers, every little bit of practice helps. The most important thing is to stay patient and keep going, even when it feels challenging. Over time, you'll notice improvements in your ability to understand and communicate in English. And remember to celebrate your successes along the way, no matter how small they may seem. Every step forward is a step closer to fluency.
Whether you're a beginner or an advanced learner, our carefully curated stories cater to all levels, making learning English enjoyable and effective. Join our community of language enthusiasts and let the magic of storytelling transform your learning experience. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. Dive into Englishstorywell, where every story is a step towards mastering English.